Hi, I'm Nat.
And I'm Guy. And this is your home for everything Alberta independence. And we got a big show for you today. I think we got like Keith Wilson, Pierre, Poilievre, Mark Carney. All the big names are in the breaking news. I don't know how many of the sections we're going to get to today, but there are a lot of stories. I'll say that much.
Talking about them, not on the show. But first of all, thank you so much for joining us today. Please don't forget to subscribe again. It really does help us out. It is what helps us out the most. Also, we try to read most, if not all, your comments live after each segment, and we love to know what you think, so please do join the conversation. Also, if you send a super chat, it really helps us out, and we pause the whole show for those, whatever we're doing, and read them first. And we have memberships.
Yeah, and we're back on the original set. We'll swap back and forth. I still got a few things to fix on the other set. I'll tell you, my chair was really uncomfortable over there, and the desk height. These desks are adjustable, and so is the chair, so I could get it perfect in here.
He's very nitpicky about things.
Well, I got a bad back. That's why.
Steven Jensen says hi at the guy because the guy on YouTube said hello. And Silverfeet, hello, and thank you for being here. Says hi, catching a live stream today because there's no football on as yet. I love football. You are free to hate me all you want. I love football too.
Oh my
He
God.
hates me because I love football. I kind of sat him down and forced him to watch yesterday the USA game. They lost. But I've been watching almost every game as I try to write scripts and try to start editing as well the videos for next week.
You've never liked sports in the past,
do.
ever. You've actually
When
talked
it's a
about
World-
how much you hated soccer.
I'm a Mexican, I'm a Latina. So when the World Cup comes, just when the World Cup comes, I do care quite a bit about it.
Well, she's watched it obsessively, and she gets ready for like 2 to 3 hours, a really long time, and she's just watching
get ready
videos
for
about all the teams, why they're winning, why they're losing, analysis. Like, I like UFC.
I'm not even
I watch
betting
a lot
on them.
of UFC news, but I have nothing on Nat when it comes to soccer. Every single game I'm forced to listen to now because she's got it in the
I have my
background.
headphone
Well,
in
you
now.
used to be respectful with the headphones. Now it's like, oh, I want you to become a fan, and it's like there's no real stakes in soccer.
Yes, there is. That way we have something to talk about. And not that I'm a fan of FIFA or of the organization itself, but especially with Mexico, and again, me being Mexican, Mexico coming through to the next stage with full points, apparently, and not losing one game. I mean, we do have that curse of the 5th game, but we'll see where it goes. Sadly, Canada, and I think presently at this point with Canada, as it continues to show both in politics and now apparently in
Well,
sports,
we got something to talk.
it went through a bit lighter than it usually does.
We have something to talk about: Alberta independence.
True, that is true. But
I don't know why you're trying to turn this show into a soccer show. I don't even like soccer, but
you should.
it is the
It's
World
fun.
Cup, so
it is entertaining. And again,
but there is one huge story on the World Cup
yeah.
that is very political
there's
today.
quite a few. But today, especially in a game like today, there will be a very interesting add-on that I'm sure both teams, and they've already started complaining to FIFA about, we'll talk about it a bit more, but it has to do with ideologies kind of conflicting and intersecting and what happens in a liberal city when the push comes to
Why don't we go into it a little bit? What are the two teams exactly?
So it's Egypt versus Iran. So that's how they ended up falling during this stage. They're playing against each other in Seattle, one of the wokest cities, I think, in the world, on the night that they had designated as Pride Night. So everybody's allowed to bring in their rainbow flags and their LGBTQ, MMWSG, the LGTV stuff. And it's Iran against Egypt. So both teams actually, and we know what they think about the alphabet community over there and the kinds of treatment that they give to the LGBTQ community over there. Not that I agree with that part, but I also don't agree with the ideology that has surrounded sports now.
First of all, I don't even like Pride Night in sports whatsoever.
No.
So I'm actually in agreement with the two teams. And if they don't want to wear the jerseys or anything like that, that should be on the absolute players.
It's not about jerseys. They're not putting any logos or anything on jerseys because these are official
Well, yeah, I'm
World
aware
Cup
of that.
ones.
But what I'm saying is if they don't want to participate in a night like that, they shouldn't be forced to.
Well, and they both complained to FIFA, and we'll see where it goes because apparently there hasn't really been much of a resolution as of now because it's up to the stadium in Seattle. I think it's the Sounders Stadium, whatever they call it, Seattle City Stadium now I think it's called, for the World Cup. But apparently now, who knows what's going to happen, and it's starting at 6 p.m.
This is one particular time. I usually don't agree with all these sports protests, things like this, but having some kind of little sign of protest, especially when it's FIFA, because they are sticklers for everything. The stories coming out of FIFA, and then on top of that, the FIFA corruption, absolutely ridiculous.
Yes.
Let's get into some Alberta independence
well,
news.
Well, there's a few more comments, and then we'll get into breaking news. Kent Pengelli says Pierre Poilievre is how he wrote it, has gotten rich from the corrupt system. He isn't going to fix it. He's not going to save Canada. And he's more than most, I think, by now proven that he's there to continue to just grasp for power. Just the same as Mark Carney and
I don't think
else.
he's even there to grasp for power. I think he's there for controlled opposition. You're inside a very progressive liberal system that's rotten to the core, that's going to favor liberals for decades to come, simply for the fact conservatives have fled Canada en masse by the hundreds of thousands every year. I think Poilievre is realizing he may not even have the critical mass to win a national election at this point. Alberta definitely has a critical mass of conservatives that could vote for independence and that we could actually get freedom in Alberta. That being said, maybe he's cashing in at this point because there are big rumors that he's got a $30 million bank account now. I still haven't had a chance to look into that since that commenter said something, but it's definitely on my list there.
And Steven Jensen says, only Canadian football. I'm sorry, but I mean, so if you mean soccer, I'm sorry, but Canadian football sucks. But actually, he says football. So maybe if it is football, balls of food, sure.
Canadian football is actually not that bad. I used to watch American football. The CFL, I like the rules better because it is a faster kind of play.
Football, not real football. Okay. Again, I'm Mexican, and I
think Canadian football would be the CFL, wouldn't it?
I don't know. I don't watch that. It's
too cold to be playing soccer in Canada there.
Football. David W. Carlson says, good afternoon. Good afternoon, and thank you for being here. Silverfeet says, Pride Night in Seattle, LOL. But especially because it's the teams of Iran and Egypt that get to play during the Pride Night. And again, Seattle is very, very pro any kind of ideology, very, very pro the Palestine marches and bringing in more and more Muslims and adopting the culture and everything else, but also very pro LGBTQ. And now they're kind of coming to a head, literally, with the actual countries that they seem to protect.
This would have been a perfect opportunity for conservative media from different conservative outlets that have enough money to fly people over there to interview some of the players and ask political style questions about the Pride Night. Now, because it's taking place in Seattle, I don't know how much conservative media is actually going to be there.
And because it's soccer, as they call it there, but Americans just now are realizing that soccer is a sport and some of them care about it. But because of that, I don't think any of the independent outlets would even want to go there to ask them because they don't care about soccer. Silverfeet says they will walk up the field if they see a rainbow. I think they're going to be seeing many. I mean, maybe not from their own supporters, but at least from the people that maybe have tickets or passes or bought tickets before they knew that it was going to be Iran versus Egypt. I don't know.
Well, I mean, yeah, on every single level, I think those two countries don't like the rainbow flag, whether it's the Christian rainbow flag or it's the LGBTQ rainbow flag.
Not even not like it. There's quite harsh penalties far beyond just not disliking it within their own country.
Seattle, I lived in Seattle for a short period of time, and I'll tell you this, Seattle is one big rainbow flag, much like Vancouver is as well. Even the churches are covered in rainbow flags.
And Holden, that's just how I'm going to have to call you. Holden says, I love the show. Thank you so much. Hamilton here for a free Alberta. And yes, so
absolutely.
Are we. Todd, hello, says hello. And Stephen Jensen says, yes, CFL, Canadian Football League.
Yeah, and CFL is somewhat exciting. You got those outdoor stadiums. I like the 3 downs. It pushes the pace a lot more. I'm not a huge sports fan overall. I like combat sports, so boxing, kickboxing, and mainly UFC. That being said, I used to work at a sports bar, so I would always be forced to watch a lot of the sports. And CFL, I didn't mind.
But now, speaking of, let's go to actual breaking news.
Extra, extra, read all about it. Extra, extra, read all about it.
Well, I will say before we get into the breaking news, I worked at a bunch of different sports bars in Vancouver, and they actually let each player take the Grey Cup one day once they win. And that Grey Cup's been left at multiple bars that I've worked at, funny enough. And a couple of days later, one of the players will come and, did we leave the Grey Cup here? Sure enough, they had left the Grey Cup there.
Did you get to hold it?
No, I didn't care. We put it in the back.
But now let's start with Alberta's Choice says, quote, calm down, Alberta, the adults are talking. And it's the Federalists, and this was an AI video that was actually very well done this time.
This is the best AI video I think there is, and I think I'm going to play it every single episode until a better video comes out. I have to give mad props to whoever made this. The comedy on this, at first I thought it was going to be cringe comedy with the superheroes, and then it flipped 3/4 of the way through. Absolutely fantastic. More of this is what's needed.
When Alberta dared ask for fairness, Ottawa's strongest soldiers assembled.
We must protect the Federation.
Canada forever. Alberta under control.
Calm down, Alberta. The adults are talking.
We must control Alberta, even if it costs them everything.
Their mission was simple. Keep Alberta in. Keep Alberta paying.
You boys look like the HR department at a pipeline protest.
I do love how Kenny looks down at his belly.
Fantastic job. And it really made me look back at a lot of the other AI videos. And I don't like to be harsh with Alberta independence, but we're learning to use AI. And I'm looking at other countries learning to use it as well. Mexico is using it a lot in songs that are politically oriented. They're doing a good job on the music side. I will say up to this point with the ads, they've been mediocre. Mediocre is actually fairly good because they haven't been bad. That being said, this ad right here hit a whole nother level. This should be the new standard for us. Adding comedy in like that absolutely worked. The idea I think it hit every single mark, and I think it appeals to young people as well, and I think that's what's important. I also think it appeals to the left. The left are big into superheroes.
True. But next, CBC Watcher says, quote, Keith Wilson saying Brexit was about the UK moving away from its largest market being Europe. Alberta independence is about Alberta moving closer to its largest market and the largest market in the world, the United States.
And you can slow down a little bit with the reading.
Sorry. Hold on. There we go.
A new report says Alberta separating from Canada could be extremely costly, predicting a potentially $62 billion hit on Alberta's economy. Joel Dryden has the details and how separatists are challenging that big number.
I thought you wanted me to.
As Alberta's referendum draws closer, new numbers highlight the possible economic impact of separation. Though one Alberta independence advocate says the report is playing on people's fears instead of opportunity. The Calgary Chamber of Commerce commissioned analysis from economist Trevor Toome. He's part of the Federalist group Lead Not Leave. Toome says based on Brexit, an estimated 8% jump in interprovincial and international trade costs in Alberta could spark huge job losses.
That could shrink employment in Alberta by, I estimate, about 175,000.
And you can leave it there just for a second. Keith Wilson is going to chime in the second half of this video with an absolutely excellent take. But we've been covering the USMCA a lot over the last few days. The review actually comes up in, I think, about a week now. And I don't think Trump's necessarily going to cancel it, but if it does, that would be absolutely huge for Alberta independence, because what Alberta wants is to closen economic ties with the United States, where Canada is directly moving in the opposite direction. Northern Perspective has been talking a lot about this, getting the international takes, and people that are like insiders with Mark Carney on an international level with a different perspective, they are absolutely ghosting not only the United States, but Mexico as well. The European Union has chimed in with a few articles questioning, is Mark Carney even wanting to renew the USMCA? If that's the case, and he's choosing China and trying to diversify his economy away from the biggest trading partner that he has a land border with, this could be a big talking point for Alberta independence, meaning we don't want to go the direction of Canada. We want the traditional trading partner with the traditional set of values that align with Alberta. So I think we should really lean in to the USMCA if it does not go well for Canada.
Well, no, especially as Canada continues to fumble it, and there's more and more examples to prove so.
Therefore, shrink the economy as well, potentially by as much as $62 billion, we estimate.
He adds other possible changes could impact investment here.
Separate currency, different approaches to judicial systems, contract enforcement, all sorts of other uncertainty that would perhaps detract from the willingness of investors to move capital into the province.
We pride ourselves in being a business-friendly province, and all of a sudden this has added a layer of uncertainty.
And it is, man, Alberta could be a bit business-friendly province, especially if we lowered regulations and we didn't have the federal government holding us back. There are trillions of dollars ready to flow into Alberta in a free and independent Alberta that doesn't have all this climate hoax, all this green agenda hoax, all these carbon taxes and everything else. There is a pot of money just sitting there willing to come into Alberta, not just for natural resources, but the manufacturing sector, I believe, would grow overnight, because that is the point of entry. That is the point that the minerals are coming out of the ground, that the oil and natural gas is coming out of the ground. It would only make sense to set up what is right now manufacturing in Quebec and Ottawa and have it give birth in Alberta.
On top of what they're already dealing with.
But not everyone agrees that Brexit is a fair comparison.
Brexit was about the UK moving away from its largest market being Europe. Alberta independence is about Alberta moving closer to its largest market and the largest market in the world, the United States.
Wilson also says Alberta would focus on trade talks with the U.S. instead of the needs of other provinces.
In an independent Alberta, we can negotiate directly with the Americans. Over 90% of our trade in our economy is tied to the American economy.
Other economic projections around separation vary widely. Alberta's premier has estimated $400 billion in transitional costs, while separatist group, the Alberta Prosperity Project, has it pegged at $6 billion. The Alberta government has commissioned the University of Calgary to study the potential costs of leaving Canada, and that report is expected by the end of the summer. Joel Dryden, CBC News, Calgary.
End of the summer, my ass, right before the election when nobody's going to have time to go over the details. Keith Wilson's working on those white papers. Hopefully they're going to come out a lot sooner than that. But I really liked what Keith Wilson said here. And what did he say? We want to increase trade with our major trading partner and less with provinces. This is a way to lean into that dynamic of Trump without actually bringing Trump into it. This triggers the rest of Canada. This triggers the Liberals within Ottawa. But a lot of people in Alberta don't look at things the same as Ottawa and the Laurentian elites do.
And also the fact that they even brought in Keith Wilson. I mean, that's a change that I'm glad to see. And also because Keith Wilson is that figure that is able to go into the more mainstream media, but it is a message that at least needs to get out there, and that the contrary, but very, in a way, palatable position that for a mainstream media to even bring in someone with the opinion of Alberta independence and the facts of Alberta independence.
Well, yeah, they not only brought Keith Wilson in, but they actually pitched the APP numbers of $6 billion of startup cost against the federal government startup cost. Most mainstream media have only pitched that $400 billion number. So it was really nice to actually see that contrast at this point.
And the thing is, I think it is very important to lean specifically into what is happening with the USMCA, how Canada continues to apparently ghost everybody and not want to go into trade talks, and apparently Carney wanting to intentionally tank it, because then it helps with what Keith Wilson was saying right there. We want to move closer to the U.S. We want to move closer to having the trade and the openness with the U.S. that being within Canada doesn't allow us to do, especially if we continue to see and push out the message that Canada is wanting to basically completely, fully break up, elbows up with the U.S.
Well, and talk about the values that the U.S. has that we want to lean into with free speech and things like that, because these are in direct contradiction of what Carney is actually trying to do here. We know the litany of bills that he's currently trying to pass.
And thank you so much, Stephen Jensen, for the $2 super chat saying Keith said it will be done by the end of July.
Yeah,
That's
so
great.
Absolutely fantastic. Right now, they have a $400 billion number, which they're not willing to show their work because they don't have their work. And they're literally saying, we came up with the number, we're doing the work, it's going to be out by the end of the summer. We already have the APP papers that is outlining around a $6 billion number that has the work in there. And now we have Keith Wilson coming out with these refreshed white papers. So we should be able to own that space when we do go on mainstream media, whether it's the APP numbers or Keith Wilson's new numbers. I mean, the federal government can try to quote a $400 billion number all they want, but if they haven't put the work in and showed how they got to that number, that's not actually a real number.
And again, also as we move closer to when the USMCA is supposed to be either done or the talks continue to happen. But thank you so much, Stephen Jensen. And speaking of, CTV News says, quote, Trump's Trump threatens 100% tariff penalty on countries that impose tax on digital services. Canada.
Yeah, and this is absolutely fantastic. There is a lot going on with the Granite Act and a lot of things that Donald Trump is trying to push back. What's happening from the globalists and on a global level with Canada, the UK, as well as the EU and Australia, they are trying to regulate and legislate American companies. Why? Because they know that's going to have the biggest effect on the next American elections, the midterms, as well as their own elections. Trump does not want to allow those regulations to affect free speech and American companies. And I think it will be a big blow to the people of the world and free speech in general if the globalists are able to regulate these social media companies in America whose fundamental first principle is free speech. And that's one that should be Alberta's first principle as well. And we need to lean into that more because free speech is disappearing at an extraordinary rate within Canada right now.
But also specifically with the silencing or the imposing the tariffs specifically on countries that want to do something with or take away essentially free speech and the freedom of digital services. Being able to do that now that also the USAID money has basically dried up in a lot of these countries that used to use it to both influence within their own countries for the left and the globalists, but also to influence within the U.S. itself.
Well, the digital services tax, Canada doesn't seem to be backing off. Trump's threatening 100% tariff, not just on Canada, but all these countries. But also the Granite Act allows for lawsuits from American social media companies at these governments themselves. Trump is really pushing back on every level. And this is why we need to make sure the Trump presidency is backed up by somebody that's going to continue that same push and those same first principles.
And Stephen Jensen, thank you so much again for the $5 super chat. I'm trying to bring it up, but for some reason it's not showing up here. But thank you so much, and I'll read it. Stephen Jensen says, the law of government takes something simple and make it as complicated, expensive, and illogical as possible. And I'm guessing YouTube doesn't want that to be able to be shown. But thank you so much for the $5 super chat. And again, I don't know, every single other chat is showing up, so I don't know why yours isn't, but thank you so much.
But I will say I watch a lot of liberal media, so I know their talking points and what's going on there. And even liberals at this point are starting to complain the government is too big. Why are they complaining the government's too big now? Now that Carney has a majority government, they want to get rid of all the fat so they can press through everything they want without having to get a consensus within their own caucuses. This majority government is going to really put the pedal to the metal over the next 3 years. They're simply setting up the mechanisms right now. And like the title of today's podcast was, Pierre Poilievre is all bark and no bite. He doesn't have any leverage to stop this liberal government from this path of authoritarianism.
Speaking of PP, Jeff Ross says, I love it when Pierre Poilievre comes to Alberta. He proves every time how harmful Canadian federalism is for Alberta. Notice he never talks about the 2-to-1 discrepancy in parliamentary seats between Alberta and the Maritimes, the 10-to-1 discrepancy in dairy licenses between Alberta and Quebec, or the $16 billion Alberta will send to Quebec just this year.
On separatism, do you support Alberta Premier Daniel Smith putting this independence question to a referendum?
Look, the thing is happening, but we have to deal with it. At the end of the day, I wish it weren't happening, but it is, and I'm going to make the case for Canada. And I'll be spending time throughout the summer going to visit with people in communities, big and small, north, south, east, and west in the province, to make the case for Canada, to make sure Albertans know that they are heard and loved within our Confederation. And I hope that every Canadian will wrap their arms around Albertans to bring the country together.
On separatism.
My God, it's just pathetic when he says Alberta needs a hug. Alberta needs a hug. I'm tired.
We need to love Alberta.
I'm absolutely tired of hearing it. That being said, I like Poilievre on his first principles, and what Alberta independence is actually pushing for is a lot of the first principles he can't actually enact, and he doesn't have the mechanisms to enact. What Poilievre is actually saying is, no, you have to wait 3 years and vote harder for me. Absolutely ridiculous. I love the guy. I love a lot of his policies, but his bank account is looking a little large these days, and it looks like he was tapped on the shoulder along with Danielle Smith to say, shut this Alberta independence thing down to continue to consolidate power within the Liberal government. They should be using this as a leverage point against the federal government, not against its own citizens that want the same things that Poilievre is trying to preach but can't actually enact.
I mean, we know why he really doesn't want Alberta to leave, because that is where most of his votes are. And again, if the one and only thing apparently he wants is to continue to grasp for power, because again, he is a career politician, that is, and that will continue to always be his MO, well then, of course, he needs to go against it. And even if the principles align, and even if he could use in a political way Alberta's independence as a leverage point against the current Liberal federal government, now with a majority, he will never do it, because we saw it there as she asked because the question she asked was on separatism, do you agree? And you could see him visibly clench, because he thought he was going to be asked if he agrees with independence, but no. Then she took it to Daniel Smith, but still, you saw it there. He doesn't really have many answers, because his answer is, wait 3 years for me. I will continue to say I want to hug Alberta and I want to wrap my arms around Alberta to essentially stifle it and shut it down as quickly as possible.
Well, there's one other thing here. That AI ad we played right in the beginning with all those superheroes. Those were Liberal superheroes. There needs to be a specialty ad for Danielle Smith and Pierre Poilievre where we go directly at them, because vote harder and wait 3 years is not something citizens want to hear at this point.
And Stephen Jensen, again, thank you so much for, and this one I can bring up. Thank you so much for the $5 super chat, saying the NDP hired 42,000 new government workers. When UCP got back in, they never got rid of them. And again, as I always say, very similar to when we talk about speech laws and hate speech laws. Yes, the Conservatives will fight and say, no, we don't want these. But once you grant power to the government or to the federal system, it's not going to get rid of it. It's going to find new ways to use it. But there will be many, many things that the Liberals pass that if the Conservatives ever get in, it's going to benefit them as well. So they might as well just keep them there. And this is a good example.
Well, yeah. And I didn't know if I was going to bring this up today, but I've been watching a lot of EU politics and politics kind of around the world. And what you're seeing happening is liberalism and progressive liberalism is on a sharp decline. Everybody can see it. It's as plain as day. And in order to grasp for power, they're building mechanisms of censorship through hate speech, specialty classes, and other things. The exact same thing is going on in Canada, although I would say liberalism isn't on the same decline in Canada as it is within the EU. But what's happening is conservatism and the right are on the uprise. Those mechanisms are going to be built. And then the right's going to come into power, or the conservatives. And who do you think is going to use those mechanisms? And then the left's going to say, oh, we want free speech. We want free speech. You guys are the one building the mechanisms to take free speech away. You're trying to regulate free speech on a global basis and going after American social media companies.
And again, I think that's why we do have to be very careful, and not just because someone says they're conservative, because someone says that they have X, Y, and Z principles, believing fully that they will actually comply with, for example, making the government smaller, because no career politician, nobody that is there to grasp for power will ever want to reduce their own power and their own ability to do things.
Well, I wouldn't say anybody, because I'm looking down south at Donald Trump, and it's very interesting. Mark Carney always talks.
But again, that's why you shouldn't believe all conservatives. But once you start seeing them do the things, well, then, okay, now we can believe you.
Well, Mark Carney keeps talking about all the jobs, and he's comparing Canadian jobs to American jobs. What we're not realizing is it's mass hiring going on in Canada to try to hide the job numbers. In the United States, Donald Trump is radically reducing and firing government workers at every single turn. And that's exactly what you want. And the job numbers aren't comparable whatsoever, because we want government workers fired. We want a smaller government, a more lean government. We've seen what happened with Elon Musk, even in the private sector, when he dramatically cut down workers. These companies worked massively better.
Thank you so much, Stephen Jensen. And also thank you so much, and I can't bring it up because, again, it's on RUMBLE, but thank you so much to Independent Alberta for the $5
thank you.
RUMBLE rant, saying check out this counter. It adds $634 per second for Alberta Wealth going to Rottawa. And it's www.ottawatakes.com.
Yeah, and we show that counter very often on the show. We actually showed it 2 days ago. Absolutely fantastic. I believe Keith Wilson's organization keeps posting it, so we're going to keep posting it on this show as well.
Yes, and lastly, to round it off, Mark Nixon says, quote, Alberta independence. At least he's talking about it. Mark Carney says the world sees Canada as a trustworthy country, saying we can't mess this up. $1 trillion has flooded out of Canada since 2015. The world is currently rejecting the Canadian Northern Peso because it continues to lose weight as well.
At a minimum. 1 second. They were just talking about on the news about Alberta's going to have to make its own dollar. Oh, no. Yeah, maybe we can back that with gold or a hard currency. And even as a transitional currency, the U.S. dollar is going to look a lot better than the Canadian dollar, which is currently starting to fall off a cliff.
Yeah, it already does. It already does look better.
At a minimum, it's years of uncertainty before the subsequent question comes, right at a time the world is fundamentally uncertain, right at a time Alberta and Canada, Quebec, Ontario, the territories, the whole country are moving to the forefront, right at the time when we're seen as one of the most trustworthy, reliable, desirable countries to do business with, and we shouldn't mess that up.
One of the most reliable countries to do business with. How many deals do you have? All of Canada's deals are based upon the USMCA. So he has a bunch of MOUs from other countries that want to avoid US tariffs through Canada. All of that is hingent on renewing the USMCA, which is not looking good right now.
Literally, there's a reason why he tripped over that, because he knows it's not true, and even his own body can't let him just continue to try to tell lies this blatantly.
Well, it's going to be interesting what happens, because the USMCA definitely isn't getting that 16-year renewal that Canada wants, number one. The second thing that can happen is it can go into a year-to-year review. If it does that, that creates inconfidence within the Canadian companies. Headquarters and manufacturing will start to quickly move to the United States, which will drastically undercut the Canadian economy. And I think overall that would help Alberta independence. But if Donald Trump absolutely cancels the USMCA, you're going to see numbers for Alberta independence absolutely explode. Not because Alberta wants Canada to do bad, but because Alberta wants to align with the US with its trade. It wants to do what Canada should be doing, but is refusing to do. Negotiators aren't even showing up to trade talks anymore, not just with Canada, but with Canada and Mexico.
Exactly. And thank you so much again to Steven Jensen for the $2 super chat saying, what business? We can't get anything built. Exactly. And there's already been even businessmen and business people and businesses come out to say that no, they don't want to continue to try to make it work in Canada because it doesn't, and that they would be more attracted to an independent Alberta if that could ever happen, especially given the natural resources, but also, as you were saying, the manufacturing sector and other types of natural resources as well.
Northern Perspective has been doing an absolutely fantastic job pointing this out in the last, I would say, 7 days, getting interviews and publishing those interviews. Now, I hope when they come to Alberta, they haven't got the tap on the shoulder saying we need to be a united Canada or whatever Danielle Smith's little slogan is.
Sovereign Alberta within a
Because I really do like Northern Perspective. They do great investigations, but they are very in line step with the federal government. So I hope maybe they're not for Alberta independence, but hopefully they're not going to be against it or take the Danielle Smith or Pierre Poilievre line there.
Mm-hmm. And lastly, I know I already said lastly, but I also forgot, there will be this event coming up, and thanks to Justin GP for once again highlighting it for us. Grand Prairie, Big Beautiful Blue Mile along the bypass. Bring your Alberta flags. Alberta Independence, Saturday, June 27th. So tomorrow from 4 to 6 p.m. Start at the Sundial Center 2000. No parking there, but there will be parking when you arrive.
Yeah, and absolutely another fantastic event. Hopefully the weather holds up for this thing.
Yes, because we do know it has been raining. But thank you so much again to Jess and GP for letting us know about the event, because we do love to highlight what's coming up too.
Well, I think it was raining in the beginning of the weekend. I think it cleared up a little bit now. So hopefully it stays nice weather for them.
True. But now let's go back into your comments and then to Alberta Stay Free. Hold on, where are we? Troglodyte says, hello, folks. Hello. It says, whenever I hear Nat, I think of Nat Bailey Stadium in Vancouver. Baseball?
Baseball, yeah. I believe the Canadians play there. The Canadian baseball team.
Is that what they're called? The Canadians?
The Canadians,
okay.
Yeah.
Troglodyte says, government is self-serving. It's a self-serving organism that eats your money. And I mean, if the government is designed around doing so and doing that, and especially if it's designed around, for example, taxes, well, then yes.
Well, I'm just glad that we're going to get a vote on Alberta independence and the economics effects of that, because going forward, the people are ultimately going to get to decide here. So hopefully they make the right decision. I mean, it couldn't be more obvious, your two choices here. You have a path of prosperity, deregulation, and you have the other path of an economic cliff and mass immigration. They've already made it clear they want to federalize Canada, which is going to take sovereignty away from provinces and make life worse for individual citizens.
Troglodyte says, got another census, not in my driveway, crumpled it and left it there. Good. And hold on, Steven Jensen says, totally, they have no limit on spending because it's what they're there for. And they've been told and they've been proven by the system, in this case, the Westminster system, but also the system, way government was conducted and founded within Canada, that will benefit them and end up being useful to them in the long run.
Yeah, absolutely. And that article we played yesterday, or that clip we played yesterday, talking about the 70 million population within the UK, but there's only 8 million taxpayers funding the entire thing, and they're continuously flooding more immigrants into the country. That was shocking to me.
Justin JP says, hi, folks. Hello. Thank you for being here as well. And Charlotte says, my ex is suing me in an ugly divorce. She's a lefty, so she has a hell of a head start.
Well, I don't know.
Best of luck to you.
I will say this. We've covered some stories of some divorces. A lot of people don't talk politics or religion before they get married. These are very important to talk about, because once you have a kid, a lot of the stuff comes out. Mm-hmm. And we've seen some situations where, they're calling the government on the father. They're trying to trans the kid in order to get vengeance on the father, all kinds of crazy things. So hopefully nothing's going to go to that extreme, but man, a divorce, any which way you look at it, is never a pleasant thing.
Mm-hmm. And Sean says, Alberta has natural resources and exceptional tourism, which can turn up financial services as well, and new Western Switzerland, and could also lean into a lot of those things as well.
Well, it's very interesting. I was thinking about this today. Mark Carney is trying to walk away from the greatest consumer market in the world, which is the United States, which you have traditionally good trade with. And as far as Alberta goes, all he has to do is deregulate Alberta or make it a special economic zone so they can deregulate. And that could be the richest country inside of Canada right now. Yet he's regulated it almost out of existence. He's landlocked it inside of Canada. Once Alberta gets its independence, I think it's going to be a real competition. Who's more successful here, Alberta or the United States? But they're definitely getting both be successful in cooperation.
But again, and you're right, even in tourism, I mean, I took a road trip through Alberta not so long ago, a few years ago, and yes, you could totally lean into that as well. That could be another source and another revenue source that is, I would say, even mostly untapped too.
Absolutely.
Many people within Canada know, but I know how many people outside of Canada really even know about Alberta and the tourism and the beauty of Alberta.
Once you have control over your own economics, literally the sky is the limit for Alberta. Everything's being taken from Alberta to let you get a little bit of oil, get a little bit of natural gas so they can get their welfare and remittance payments to Ottawa. But they want to make sure all the manufacturing is based on the East Coast. They want to make sure all the tourism is based in Vancouver or on the West Coast. All those things will exist within Alberta, and these will be industries on top of industries on top of industries.
True. Stephen Jensen says, better to give it all to her for a clean break, no alimony, and start over. Kind of do agree. Trollodite says, Todd, dude, I'm going to self-repent in Supreme Court. It will be an S show. Hopefully not, and hopefully you can, escape mostly unscathed. And again, it might sometimes, I don't want to give legal advice, but sometimes it might be better to, as who was it? Who said it? Stephen Jensen said, just do a clean cut and go.
Yeah, you're going to need to do a clean cut if you can. It depends how much animosity is there. Will she even let you make a clean cut? She probably knows the court system's going to be in her favor heavily within Canada. It's a feminist court system, and you better believe if you have an opportunity to make a clean cut, make that clean cut. I was actually looking into different divorces and things like no-fault divorce. Where did it come from? It's actually called a Mexican divorce. It started here in Mexico, then America adopted it, and divorce rates just skyrocketed in the United States.
Mm-hmm. Stephen Jensen says, sorry, Nat, but women will lie and say anything in a divorce proceeding, not just in a divorce proceeding. Women are disgusting. I'm sorry. As a woman, I will say, for example, the whole Me Too movement and everything that brought up and that showed and proved that women were capable of doing, and that men apparently didn't want to think that they were capable of doing, and that other women wanted to essentially hide for them and help them lie and say, no, women are always going to be perfect, and there's no lying, there's no nothing. Women are I would say even now at this point, the ones that lie the most, because they know they can mostly get away with it.
Well, the thing I really don't like about women in divorces, and you don't see this coming from the men.
Someone please clip him saying the thing I don't like about women.
The thing I don't like about women in divorces is they always, especially if there's animosity there, want to weaponize the children. Yes. And it seems like the men just want what's best for the children. Yeah. I was actually looking at statistics on this as well. Children might do much better in single father households than they do single mother households. Now, ultimately, you would want both parents and a healthy household. Sometimes that's not always possible.
True. And Todd, thank you so much for becoming a monthly supporter again, or not again, for becoming a monthly supporter and supporting us monthly. It really helps us out as well. And Todd says, trying my first super chat. Thank you so much for the $2 super chat. Greatly appreciated as well. You could have written something else as well. You can write, if you want to write a comment, just write it as a comment and I'll read it too.
Yeah, when it comes to the super chats, we stopped the whole show and we discussed that issue for at least a little while.
Sean says, I guarantee Alberta could get an Olympics for Calgary again, which would be great for an independent Alberta and their Olympic team. And they also got the hockey thing, right?
The amount of money Alberta is going to have, it costs a lot of money to apply for all these different applications. You're going to have an abundance of money through natural resources, and no taxes on citizens is something Alberta should be leaning into. Other countries that have half the amount of natural resources that Alberta have no taxes on their citizens. And there are a slew of other countries that I've been looking into that also have no taxes on citizens because of their banking system and things like that. The federal government has no answer for that. They have a 50% tax rate. It's absolutely destroying families because both parents are having to go to work to barely survive.
Todd says, now I'm going to try and come up with something intelligent to say everything you say is intelligent. Todd, thank you so much. And Sean says, as a longtime former divorce attorney, both sides can be difficult. Family court, good people on their worst behavior, while criminal court, bad people on their best behavior. But I will say again, I mean, not to point blame at both sides. If you're going to marry someone, and I think this should be known by now because we've seen the ramifications of no-fault divorce, of marrying people and then not really knowing who they are or not wanting to discuss the intricacies of ideologies or religion or how you want to raise kids. But we've seen now the consequences of that. And I would say to young people, be very careful as to who you get together with and looking at marriage as something far beyond, and I would say even on a religious aspect, but looking at it at least with the gravity and the consequence it has, because then the consequences of not doing so are equally or way more horrible as troglodyte is now unfortunately suffering. Being able to have that conversation, especially with the young people, and telling them marriage does signify something and the union should be something that goes far beyond what we think is something you can easily get out of or easily get into.
Well when you're...
And teaching children that.
Well, when you're first meeting somebody, you're deciding whether you're getting married and you're in that courting phase, that's the opportunity to really have all these hard discussions and figure out who these people are past just the basic emotional level, because eventually you're probably going to bring kids into the relationship and then it can get really messy if you didn't know the person beforehand and now you're going to go through a divorce.
Hold on. Stephen Jensen, thank you so much for the $5 super chat, says, $1 billion for the Olympics will actually be affordable.
Absolutely. I mean, and because Alberta will be a new, free, and independent country, we're going to want to introduce it to the world. So a lot of these events that I think are overpriced and I wouldn't even want in the country because I don't think it's necessarily worth the price tag always, especially when it comes to Canada and FIFA right now. That being said, when you're trying to introduce a new country to the world and independence to the world and what independence has done for Alberta, that could be infectious for a lot of other places like Ireland. The Irish independence movement is now starting to move.
Well, I mean, we
have an article on that later.
On FIFA and World Cups, we've seen both Qatar and now Saudi Arabia essentially taking advantage of that and wanting to do that. But I mean, in Benito Mussolini's Italy, not to make that comparison, but also in the Austrian painters' Germany, they also used the Olympics and the World Cup, not the World Cup, but in different ways, as essentially propaganda pieces for the country. So, I mean, it has been done before and it continues to be done, and FIFA continues to allow it because Saudi Arabia in the middle of a 50-degree weather.
It doesn't need to be a propaganda piece. It could literally just be showing Alberta for what it is after Canada and what it was before Canada.
And last two, Troglodyte says, I've been dealing with coercive control. It's been an S show, but I'm happy to share. And I'm sorry, you're having to go through that. And Troglodyte also says, the Alberta divorce is very symbolic for me. And I think you should lean into that. And also, I mean, Canada acts like the crazy woman that continues to lie and want to shackle you down and say, no, you can't leave. And if you want to leave, I'm going to make it real difficult for you.
Well, I was thinking about this exact...
Because a lot of people are putting it on the other way, where Alberta is the battered women and Canada is the the husband that continues to do that. But I think it could also be the other way around. Canada is a crazy woman that wants to lie and cheat and steal and continue to take all your stuff while Alberta's just trying to leave.
Yeah, well, I was kind of thinking about this while I was leaving the park and walking home. I went to work out a little bit today. And I was thinking, like, if you view this in the terms of a divorce, how are each side pitching it and where is it actually really at? The federal government is trying to pitch this as it's all roses and everything is good. Obviously, it's not, or we wouldn't even be at the point where we want a binding referendum, let alone you're having to stop us from getting a binding referendum and give us a non-binding referendum. You see the Conservatives pitching it in a much different way. They're pitching it in the sense that, yeah, there's some things wrong here. It's more of, I would say, a verbally abusive relationship, and then you have Alberta Independents pushing this as a physically abusive relationship, and things need to be solved now. And I think it's actually at that third stage with Alberta Independents. I think it's absolutely obvious the discontent and the disdain the federal government treats Alberta with. There's a 100-year history there. Now,
literally,
the reason the federal government's able to lean into it's all roses, or the Conservatives are able to lean into, oh, it's not that bad, is because a lot of people just don't know the history. And this is why I'm really for, after the non-binding referendum, if we can get a new leader in the UCP that will actually start pushing sovereign policies, like not sending remittance payments to Ottawa through passing a bill through the UCP, or bringing the Canadian pension plan to Alberta rather than give a bunch of money to Ottawa banks and things like that. It's going to force the federal government to really show their hand rather than try to teach all the voters the entire history of the Alberta independence movement or the relationship between Canada, which can be kind of hard. We can teach that through the federal government's actions and saying, no, you can't take the CPP money back. No, you have to put your natural resource money in Ottawa banks.
Stephen Jensen, thank you so much for the $2 super chat saying Germany 1939 Olympics propaganda. That one is the one. Thank you. And also, again, the can I even say that name on YouTube? The Italian dictator that also used the World Cup in Italy for that, I think 1938, because again, I have been looking into the history, because now when I get interested in a subject, kind of similar to what happens to you, I really go into it. I want to know everything about it. Well, so now it's the World Cup for me.
It would be very interesting as well to have these big sporting events or these big events that we share the event, much like FIFA, with the United States. And if it was, imagine it was Alberta and the United States sharing
but the US
event.
won't get it for a while.
Well, no, I'm not even talking FIFA. I'm just talking a big event that's a shared event between multiple countries, and not sharing that event with Canada, but sharing it with the United States, because
that would send a message.
Because the value system is a lot more aligned. It would really send a message to Canada at that point, but it would really send a message to Canadians as well that did not understand the severity of what's going on here between the Laurentian elites and Western Canada.
Last few comments. Over on RUMBLE, KP4U says, football or soccer? Lol, good day, everyone. It's football. Football.
It's soccer.
It's football, actually. Not even football. It's football.
I don't speak broken English, so it's definitely soccer. Why don't we go?
And hold on. Jesse B says, you're part of the cool crowd now, Todd. Congrats. And yes, thank you so much, Todd, for being here. And Todd, also, please don't go broke, because says lol, Jess, now I can go broke on more than just flags. And again, if this is gonna make you go broke, please don't. And we'll just continue to read your comments. Okay, now let's go into, speaking of flags, let's go into Alberta Stay Free. Oh no, Todd! Thank you so much.
What are you doing? He's trying to give it to us rather than the wife.
Just as I said, no, it's not troglodyte is getting divorced.
Troglodyte. No, sorry, it was the T.
Not sure about Todd's current marital status, but thank you so much for the $20 super chat just right after I said if you're gonna go broke, please don't do so. But says, I'm starting to worry there's already too many federalists in Alberta, too corrupted of a government. They all seem to be coming out now, scaring me. LOL, help Stephen and Jess and y'all. LOL.
Yeah, well, absolutely. This is a citizen-run movement by the citizens, and this is why I keep bringing up. We want a lot of things the National Conservatives want, even at a more severe level. We're trying to have the mechanism outside of politicians having a citizen-led grassroots movement, and the federal government absolutely hates it because it could be emulated by other provinces at this point. But one of the strategies we have to be trying to implement after October 19th, after that non-binding referendum, is taking control of the UCP. We're going to have to take the risk. Mitch Sylvester has already implemented us to try to buy memberships. We own 60% of the UCP at this point. We need to continue to buy memberships and try to get a leadership review. We're going to have to take some risks because the political side of Alberta does hold a lot of the pieces on the chessboard, and we want to try to get control of more power within Alberta through the grassroots citizen movement, but also through the political mechanisms if possible.
But I would also say don't despair too much, Todd, and don't start getting too worried because, again, I will say I feel like there's a big contingent of people that are maybe got a little bit discouraged now that it's a non-binding referendum. And again, if we can posit at least the idea that there are other ways and mechanisms to actually get independence, then as we've talked before, the younger people, the ones that are already packed essentially to go live and move to the US, if they can actually feel and see that there is, and they can be part of a movement that will be concise and will do anything possible to make Alberta independent, then I think that that would also help push more and more people that are right now silent or too busy with work or too busy trying to figure out how to continue to live within Canada. If they can see a clear path for Alberta independence, and we can give them that if we continue to give them the plan A, B, C, D, E, F, G.
Yeah, also
and having those plans
Alberta independence is really starting to get its legs under it now that there's a date for this referendum. It took a little bit of time there. There was a little bit of a delay. And I know Todd watches the show on a regular basis.
Thank you.
We're watching the show on the regular basis because we're actually doing the show. But you're going to go through valleys and hills here. What?
Peaks and valleys.
Peaks and valleys, yeah. And I think we're definitely on the uprise here, and I think things are starting to look good. So do not get too down right now.
And again, I am seeing more and more people also speaking out, and we're gonna start by playing a clip of someone speaking out with. Oh, I forgot her name.
Well, another thing I will say here is it's a bunch of politicians and Laurentian
Tanya, sorry. There we go.
It's a lot of politicians and elites lining up against the citizens themselves. This is really a populist movement. When you look at the actual facts on the ground and what one path means, an independent Alberta compared to the other economic path of Canada and all the other things that go along with that, I think the decision should be clear. We'll see on October 19th how clear it actually is, I guess.
But again, as I was saying, and because we are in the Alberta Stay Free section, Tanya Clemens also with video. Alberta 51 Project says an independent Alberta would likely double.
And you can slow down a little bit when you're reading everything.
Double pension payouts. Same goes for statehood.
No, Canada. I don't mean to piss you off. Just kind of read it slower, but nice.
Well, that's how I read. Canada pensions are portable. No Alberta will not invest in India. Double your pension. Vote for independence. Did you know Quebec already handles their own pensions, not Canada? And the way that Canada handles them is not as transparent, I will say, as many people think it is. And many people don't even know where their pension money is right now or where it's being invested for their future, if they'll ever even be able to see it.
Well, and I will say this was a big video and it got a big reaction. I think we had almost 50 reposts on this video. And
on X.
On X, yeah. She did an absolute fantastic job kind of explaining a lot of this. This is one of the big issues within Alberta independence because the movement is a little bit older and not a younger movement quite yet. A lot of people are very concerned about this.
Hey, Alberta, this one matters. And if you're worried about pensions, you're not being dramatic. You're being responsible. I hear it quite often. What happens to CPP? What about OAS? What about seniors who already paid in? And for a lot of people, this isn't political. It's very personal. It's your retirement. It's your parents. It's the promise that if you worked hard your whole life, you wouldn't be left behind at the end of it. That fear deserves to be taken seriously. So let's talk facts. First, CPP and OAS are earned and portable benefits. People receive them even if they retire outside Canada. Those benefits do not disappear because of a political or jurisdictional change. Now, Alberta specifically, Albertans have been net contributors to the Canada Pension Plan for decades. In a recent year, Alberta workers paid about $8.2 billion into CPP, while Alberta seniors received $5.1 billion back. That gap, that $3 billion, isn't an accident. It exists because Alberta has a younger workforce, higher employment, and higher average incomes than most of the country. And over time, that adds up. Actuarial analysis referenced by the Alberta Prosperity Project shows that under the CPP legislation itself, Alberta's share of CPP assets could be in the range of $300 to $330 billion if Alberta ever chose to manage its own pension plan. Even if you apply very conservative assumptions and reduce that figure significantly, you are still talking about well over $150 billion tied directly to Alberta workers and retirees. So let's talk about what that actually means in practice.
And pause it just for a second. And this is one of the biggest failure on Danielle Smith's part. And this should not be an issue right now. The fact that we keep investing in the CPP and they're taking, and Alberta, the federal government is taking more than Alberta is taking out is absolutely ridiculous. This should be an Alberta pension plan. That needs to be fixed. The people need to raise their voice. This should have been fixed a long, long time ago.
CPP's long-term investment returns have historically been around 7 to 8%. A fund of that size invested prudently generates very large annual returns for one purpose only, paying pensions. Because Alberta has more workers per retiree, higher lifetime contributions, and a younger demographic profile, the analysis shows an Alberta managed plan could pay higher benefits to seniors, potentially more than doubling current CPP payouts, while reducing contribution rates for workers, potentially by about half. Not by cutting benefits, not by increasing risk, but because the math works differently for Alberta than it does nationally. And this part matters. That money is for pensions, not for general government spending, not for operating budgets. Any responsible pension system is a trust, legally protected, professionally managed, and dedicated solely to retirement security. No serious sovereignty plan involves cutting seniors off, breaking promises, or gambling with retirement income. That would be morally wrong, and it would fail immediately. As a farmer, I think about stewardship a lot. You don't gamble with what someone else depends on. You protect it, you plan carefully, you leave it better than you found it. And that's what this is about. The fear around pensions is real. But the idea that Albertans, after decades of over-contributing, are incapable of responsibly managing our own retirement security doesn't hold up when you look at the numbers.
Okay, and you can leave it there. And I will say, I got a lot to say about this video. That being said, Mark Carney is really trying to lean into the fear, saying you're not going to get your passport, you're not going to get your pension plan. Why you think you're going to have the best of both worlds? I was just watching that clip from Mark Carney today. He's already threatening to take away the pension plan. So this is why this issue brings up a lot of fear within people within Alberta, I would say. But on top of that, I would say, the amount that's being taken out every year, even in a worst case scenario, Alberta should be able to replenish that or have a fund where they're going to be able to retroactively make sure everybody that paid into the Canadian pension plan will always get their money. And I would also say, with the amount of natural resources Alberta is going to have, they might want to have a special investment fund for the most secure investments, the ones that are going to pay back the most, the ones that are guaranteed because they're aligned with the U.S., who are going to buy massive quantities of oil. There should be maybe a special way for the Alberta pension plan to actually invest in Alberta and the safest natural resource investments that it has.
But I would also mostly, I mean, if we're going to go the more radical route, and again, understanding that the pensions is something that a lot of people are worried about, especially because the over contributions of Alberta, but also because maybe now many people are realizing the mismanagement, the grave mismanagement that Canada has had ever since they started to make them assets under management instead of just letting them be within the market and actually accruing more and more interest, but investing them and now even using them as part of the numbers that Carney's giving out as money that Canada actually has.
As an asset.
As an asset that Canada doesn't actually have. But I will also say, if we want to go more radical and look at the way, for example, Bruce Party thinks about it, or even, why do I keep forgetting names today?
That's all right. Just talk about the idea.
We interviewed her.
Just talk about the idea itself.
No, because I don't want to be disrespectful.
It's not disrespectful. Just talk about the idea, Nat.
The way Bruce Party talks about it, or I remember her name in 2 seconds, talk about it. Do we really want to continue to look at this socialistic system of pensions themselves? Because again, this comes from a socialist idea of how to manage people and how to manage
right
people.
there. Yes, we do want anybody that paid into it needs to get their portion and
I'm not
more.
Saying that.
Period.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying, do we want to continue down that path or actually help people with those investments they already made, maybe being able to even take them all out and invest them as they see fit for themselves?
Yeah, well, I'm just going to say we definitely want
do we want to continue with these plans of like an Alberta pension plan?
I understand what you're saying. That is a very radical idea, first of all. But we want to make sure everybody's secured to know that their pension is safe at this point. And even if the Canadian government wants to try to play hardball and go into not good faith negotiations, and we would have to declare unilateral independence. People need to know that the Alberta government, through its natural resources, is going to replenish that fund no matter what.
Yes, but I will say again, and as Tanya Clemens was explaining there, the Canadian government essentially can't do that, and you could technically, in a way, sue or go after the Canadian government if they withhold the money that you already paid into it. Because again, if you moved to Mexico, you are still able, and you have a right to continue to receive your pension. So if they do try to use the pension plan as a way to cudgel Alberta independence, a lot of people could go after and actually pursue their actual right of receiving the pension.
You have
Canada.
to understand the direction Canada is going in. Without Alberta, it is literally an economic cliff. So if they say, no, we're not going to give it to you, and then they fall off that economic cliff, and their only means of survival is actually going into a digital currency where they can print their way out of it, you can sue them all they want. You're not going to get blood from a stone at that point. That's why I'm saying the power is really in Alberta's hands and within the natural resources of Alberta, because that could replenish any kind of fund, even if the federal government wants to play funny business here. We need to look at a worst case scenario and how we're going to make sure people are secure within in Alberta.
Jesse Jippy, thank you so much. Nadine Wellwood, that is what I wanted to say. She has also explained that the idea of pensions themselves managed by a government is basically not a good idea at all. Next, Great Northern Discussions. And I really have been growing to like Great Northern Discussions and the ways that they ask questions. So special episode tomorrow, I sat down with Keith Wilson of Let Alberta Decide. Again, letalbertadecide.com. If you haven't been to the website, says you won't want to miss this one, folks.
Well, yeah, and I started watching this just before we went on the air today. Absolutely fantastic little interview with Keith Wilson here. And it was quite a long interview as well.
Again, Great Northern Discussions is the channel.
Well, when I look at where the independence movement is and where we've been and where we need to go, and it's my view, and it continues to be, that by every objective measure, it makes sense for Alberta to be independent. We're not, the analogy I used today at the press conference was, I don't know if it's a good one, but I'll share it with you, which is, those of us who have children, we know that it makes sense for them to live at home and for us to look after them and them to seek permission from us and us to provide for them. But as they grow up and get older, and maybe when they're 21 or 25, they really don't need to keep living in the basement. They'll achieve a lot more by going out on their own. And that's what an analogy to me of what Alberta's about. When we formed in 1905, we needed the rest of Canada to be a viable province, to be a viable economy. And even into the 30s, the federal government had to bail us out during the dirty 30s. But once we discovered oil in Leduc in particular in the 40s, and we grew our economy and we started to understand how to develop our resources, we quickly found ourselves in a situation where we actually didn't need Ottawa.
And this is one of the reasons Alberta is going to be so prosperous, not just the natural resources of oil, which are absolutely massive. The more I look into it, I'm just shocked how much oil Alberta has, but natural gas, the Rocky Mountains run through there. Your natural resource sector will be able to build the foundation that the manufacturing, which is going to take a little bit longer, and the tourist sector and everything else can kind of be built upon. And then once it's all kind of mapped out and all the industries are diversified, I mean, Alberta is likely to be one of the strongest democratic economies in the world.
And also continues to shock me that a lot of the federalists continue to say, oh, but Alberta is part of Canada's land and Canada has been the ones that have brought you up and that made you a province and that has given you. Yes, but the people themselves that have worked in the oil fields and the other fields and every single other industry that Alberta currently has is the people of Alberta. It is not thanks to the Canadian people or the Canadian government. Those are the ones that have continued to take from Alberta.
The federal government is treating Alberta like a natural resource colony. And unless we want to continue to be a natural resource colony that's treated worse and worse every year, now they're saying you can't even drill for your natural resources. That MOU agreement he's trying to pull out of, which seems absolutely ridiculous. I think he's having a lot of knives out within his own caucus right now, because I definitely think he has a long-term plan of federalizing natural resources. I don't know if he was ready for the amount of pushback he was going to actually have within the Liberal Party.
But next, Mark Nixon says, quote, Pierre Poilievre is 100% correct. I mean, future generations are going to look back at Mark Carney's plan to pump air in the ground and think, wow, this was a very stupid generation.
Oh, this was an absolutely fantastic clip by Poilievre, although I will say the one we played off right off the bat where he was against Alberta independence, I didn't like that so much. But like I said, a lot of his first principles I absolutely agree with. I just don't think he has a mechanism to enact them. Alberta independence and the citizens do. And it's called a vote on October 19th.
I mean, Pierre Poilievre would do much better to just have a podcast at this point or a show where he comments and gives ideas, but clearly can't enact them.
The Alberta MOU, you said the carbon capture aspect is a money-losing project that's never been proven anywhere. The idea of carbon capture is something that you've supported in the past. You previously said your party would incentivize the energy sector to invest in carbon capture. You've actually criticized the Liberals for not doing so. So what's changed? Why have you soured on carbon capture?
Well, and it was a good question because he had flip-flopped on the issue, but he was ready with an answer. And the answer is actually absolutely fantastic. And I didn't know some of the stuff that he's actually about to say here.
Well, there are two types. One is money making, one is money losing. Money making is enhanced oil recovery. When you pump carbon back in the ground to pressurize the geology and you can bring up more oil that can then go out and make the world a better place. The other is just pumping air into the ground and getting nothing in return. And that's what Mr. Carney's pushing. Now, you said it will lose money. Well, tell me how it's going to make money. How's it going to make money? You're going to pump air into the ground. Like, nobody can use it for anything. It's just air being pumped into the ground. How many billions of dollars are we going to spend pumping air into the ground? You know, I think in 100 years, people will look back at us and say, really? They spent billions of dollars to pump air into the ground? I just find it wild. We should, and frankly, I think we need to do is just get the government off the backs of our sector, let the sector produce more affordable energy that will fight poverty and make the world a better place.
And I will say, Mark Carney at this point is just pumping hot air up all Canada's arse at this point.
Very British of you. And
well, I'm trying to watch the censors of YouTube here.
Alberta 51
You're
Project.
really blowing through the stories here now.
Well, because, yes. Alberta 51 Project says Keith is 100% bang on. Let's see what Keith says. Because, yes, he, I would say usually, if not always, is 100% bang on.
Each one of the federal politicians and the establishment class that's now supporting them, these various government relations firms that are now campaigning to have Alberta stay in Canada and lead, not leave type things. None of them have offered a single plan for how Alberta's concerns will be addressed if the federal government and some of the other provinces say, no, we like the fact that
we know how they're going to be addressed. And I think Carney's starting to be more and more clear with this, and it's going to be addressed through federalization, which is not a good thing for Alberta. And it looks like he has Danielle Smith right in line with that. This is why Alberta independence at this moment is absolutely crucial. So we can break free from that while we still have that opportunity and a legal path to do so.
I'm going quickly because I see really good comments that I want to get to.
Alberta sends us so much money. We like the fact that we control Alberta as a colony. There is only one pathway that forces lawful, fair discussions, which is a vote for independence. And we need to keep that in mind when we hear the words like we did today from Pierre Poilievre, that he has no plan. He has nice words. We've heard words for a long time. Remember that the Harper government was in power for almost 10 years, and we sent Stephen Harper to Ottawa. We helped elect a Brian Mulroney government. We sent Jason Kenney to Ottawa. We sent Pierre Poilievre to Ottawa. We elected him. And he was unable to bring fundamental fairness to Alberta to allow us to achieve our potential and build a prosperous future for our children and grandchildren. So I'm encouraged that there's an acknowledgement of the grievances and the legitimacy and the unfairness. But the simple reality is there's always going to be a population skew. Everything has changed. And the reality is we no longer need the support of Ottawa. They need our support, but they continue to tell us how to live our lives and hold us back. Through independence, we can become a standalone country. We have the economic horsepower. We have the young population, hardworking, trained, skilled labor. We have the public institutions and infrastructure to go on our own, negotiate a new trading arrangement with Ottawa, and negotiate on our own as a country a new trading arrangement with the United States, the country with which we do over 90% of our trade. So,
And I will say this, other countries have special economic zones. I understand the Canadian government or the federal government wants these crazy liberal policies. You should make Alberta a special economic zone if you wanted it to stay in Canada so it can thrive for the citizens of Alberta. And at that point, it would be for the citizens of Canada too, I guess. But I do not want to see Alberta stay part of Canada because I don't think the Canadian government has the province's best interest at heart. They have the globalist best interest at heart. They have the Laurentian elite's best interests at heart, but the citizens of Canada, they do not.
But again, I mean, even if PB, Pierre Poilievre, gets in and he has proven that he clearly can't get in and he's a lame duck, even if he got in, and I've said that it's a billion times and I always say it the exact same way, even if Pierre Poilievre got in with a majority government, it would take generations to get rid of the things that the Liberals have passed, but also the system itself. And now we've seen and we continue to see the Westminster system itself within the Canadian politics and how they work. And the provinces will never allow Alberta to even imagine what they could if they were independent. The things they could pass, the things they could produce, and the way that it could work as their own independent nation.
Let's get into the comments if we can.
What? You wanted me to talk?
No, I'm not saying anything. You said there's a
one.
And we're back. I actually think it wasn't the weather today. It was the construction from upstairs. I think they hit the breaker. They do it throughout the day sometimes.
Yes.
So
we've had several complaints, but
sorry about that. We're back. We lost power in the house. It literally just went off and on, which was enough to stop the stream.
It stops. I'm guessing if we were able to just keep the internet going, maybe we could. We'd still be connected at least without lights and looking pretty, but because our cameras have battery. But we are looking into a UPS universal power supply.
I guess we need it. We have to get one now.
Thank you, Stephen Jensen. But Sean says you haven't filed yet. Talking to Troglodyte, but like a divorce, you can first move, and this then again talking about independence, you can first move for legal separation first, which is the non-binding vote, and then you move into the actual proceedings that most people have to go into divorce court with, which would be, I'm guessing, a unilateral declaration of independence and just saying I'm leaving. If you're not going to let me, I'm going to leave by myself.
Yeah, but we don't want. I don't know, like. It would be nice if we can I want to use the unilateral declaration of independence to get a binding vote in a quick fashion. Why? Because if we just make a unilateral declaration of independence without a binding referendum, what happens then is we do risk losing the CPP and other things like that because we're not going into negotiations. We're just severing all ties. So the best way to use the unilateral declaration of independence is as a threat to the federal government to make sure we own that mechanism so we can get the binding referendum within 6 to 12 months after the non-binding referendum.
Again, even then, unless Canada wanted to fully use the CPP as a cudgel against Alberta independence, you have rights to receive your pension even if you move out of the country.
Yeah, but it's not just the pension. There's so many things when you make a unilateral declaration of independence that it would be better if we could just have the binding referendum in a quick fashion. But if that's not possible, the unilateral declaration of independence may be the only way. Luckily enough, Alberta has enough natural resources where we'll be able to replenish the pension and everything else needed.
True. Sorry, I'm just fixing my setup so I can see comments. Sean says, in soccer, I try to post football and it's spell checked with soccer. I'm sure it didn't because it's called football.
Yeah, that sounds correct to me. Absolutely.
Charlotte says, coercive control would apply to the Canada-Alberta relationship. Weird how there is such an overlap. And Charlotte says, Stockholm Syndrome, Todd. Yeah, basically. And Sean asks, hold on. Todd says, I'm worried there isn't enough willing to risk it for the biscuit. Yeah, the non-binding is frustrating me. But again, I think if we can tell people that and that's what we're trying to do, that there is a second and a third and a fourth and a fifth plan, and that we are looking into other mechanisms and ways and not just going to take the non-binding referendum sitting down, then I think that could motivate and incentivize more people to start saying, there is more possibilities aside from just waiting for a non-binding referendum and then waiting to see if the courts decide and then Daniel Smith decides to help us and let us have a binding one next, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, we were showing that that interview right off the bat with Mark Carney. Him and Danielle Smith are pitching 2.5, 3.5 years. Absolutely ridiculous. We need to make sure we're owning the mechanisms, and that is memberships in the UCP, and that we control the vote within the UCP so we can have a leadership review to get a leader in there that will put a binding referendum in quick succession, or maybe have to declare unilateral independence at some point in order to threaten the government to make sure we get a binding referendum in quick succession.
Troglodyte says, guys, I rolled on the ground faking an injury. I got a hockey puck to the face, shattered my orbital, and went to the bench and blew blood out of my nose, kept playing. Did you see what happened to that Canada player and his leg that bent in half?
My leg.
Yes, a lot of people do fake them.
Have you seen UFC? What happens to the legs in there? Much worse.
I don't know.
Much worse. I'll show you.
Except when it's scripted.
I'll show you the.
Except when it's blood. What are they called?
Right.
The blood pouches. That
it's not the WWE.
You squeeze and it bursts.
That's how she always gets under my skin. She tries to say the UFC is fake.
Yeah, half naked guys hugging each other, rolling around on the ground, sweating on each other. Yeah.
What are you?
That's a great sport.
You're watching football? There's only one real football, and that's American football.
No. And in UFC, yeah, we're about to kill each other, but then we have to tap because we don't actually want to kill each other. Todd says there's a book called Voiceless No More, focused on that very thing. You should check it out. The coerced thing you said. And thank you for the suggestion, Todd. Troglodyte says average IQ is 100. That means that half the population is below that. And very clearly so, and especially if we continue importing people from certain countries.
Yeah, but here's the thing. The federal government's policies don't even make common sense. So if we have to appeal to low IQ voters, I think that even that should be easy because Alberta is literally filled with common sense, or at least Alberta independence is. And that's the appeal we're making to, whether the person is educated or uneducated. It should be an easy appeal. I mean, the path couldn't be any starkly different.
Sorry, I'm trying to tell people on RUMBLE that we are trying to fix the audio issue over on RUMBLE. Let me try to refresh it and see if that helps it. Next.
Before you do all that, why don't you just let me log in over there and I'll see what's going on.
Todd says, help you out with your core maybe. Justin GP says, it's a great indicator that the libs are crooked if they are threatening to steal pension funds. That too, and that would be a great example of that. It is also theft and recognizable as theft on the world stage. And again, every time they try to do something to hurt Alberta independence, they're just giving us more and more ammo that helps us in the long run, especially if we try to take it, and when we try to take it to an international community, aka the US and the Shield of the Americans.
If you don't think, if you're going to try to keep the CPP, that BC is going to be completely cut off from the rest of Canada, number one, and that the oil is going to stop flowing, will we build new pipelines directly to the United States? You're going to be sadly mistaken. Alberta is actually the one with all the leverage, but Canada is the one threatening the little leverage that they actually have. I think they've miscalculated the situation here. Mm-hmm. And no, the Rumble's not going to be working today, so we're not going to be able to go over there because I see right now it's just not working. So that's fine. It would stay on YouTube today because of the power outage. I think it affected the stream.
Todd says, yeah, don't be hostile or anything on the pension thing, sheesh. Sorry. Todd says, I watched that interview today too, Guy. That was a really long interview with Keith too.
Yeah, I only got through about a quarter of it, then we had to start the show. So.
And Sean has a suggestion for Troglodyte. Says, I like this one guy called the Felon Attorney on X. Maybe he can help out. Great dude. And I will say so as well. I agree with that, Sean. So check it out, Troglodyte, the Felon Attorney. Hold on. Troglodyte says, Keith has a calm I cannot access. Same for both of us, I think.
I think a lot of us think that. That's why we want him as president of Alberta.
True. Sean says, man, I was on X looking up British Columbia stuff, and dang, that place makes Oregon look tame. And especially now when there's so many tourists flooding in both from the US but elsewhere around the world in Europe, and a lot of people in Europe even saying, oh, this even looks worse than back home, and we're from France or we're from XYZ.
Well, you don't even really know the in and out of British Columbia until you really do look into it. And he said he was looking into it. And a lot of this stuff is baked into the cake, meaning it's baked into the legislation. And it's going to be impossible to get out of there, whether you have a Pierre Poilievre or some other conservative. The judiciary has game set matched within British Columbia. You may have small victories, but overall, it's going to be absolutely impossible to change British Columbia at this point. I mean, maybe some independence movement that breaks British Columbia up into smaller segments, because the interior and the north of BC think nothing like Vancouver or Victoria.
And I apologize to our UMBLE people. Apparently the audio still doesn't work, but Todd says people 4,000 kilometers away control us. And I will say even further out than just 4,000 kilometers that control them. And they're the bosses of the ones that are trying to control Alberta itself. So people all over the place control a place where they shouldn't be allowed to anymore.
Cowboys against communism.
That's this thing he's going to try to start. Charlotte says, and I'm sorry for this, says, my son's bestie passed away of an accidental fent OD when he was 20 in BC. And unfortunately, there are more and more stories like that. And the things that they're saying they're trying to do to help are literally just making things worse. And by now they know it. And it just seems intentional. The intentional destruction, the managed decline of British Columbia on purpose.
It's not just British Columbia. We're gonna have a story, we're gonna have a story in a little bit where they're literally pushing drug education on how to use drugs into high schools within Canada, which is absolutely ridiculous.
Like at this point, you have to look at it and say it's on purpose. It's fully on purpose what they're doing.
Even the kids in the high schools are against this, and even they're speaking out at this point
because they see what happens to the friends that do take that advice, and then they no longer able to see their friends. Todd says we Albertans want nothing to do with their carbon scheme. Any of their schemes, I would say.
Yeah, I don't want anything to do with their progressive culture scheme, their carbon scheme, their economic scheme, their ideology. I mean, I can go on and on and on, and I do 6 days a week right here at 5 p.m. And there is no shortage of content when it comes to the federal government and the misdirections and mishaps in which they go through.
Justin GP says, ours, LOL, also a Canadian statement. Surprised it's not spelled ours with a Z, eh, Sean? I love when we harass Sean with the spelling. Trolodite says, save yourself, Alberta. It's in your hands. And right now, and again, there's that critical mass right now, and we don't want that critical mass to go away or to think that it's just a lost cause and it's never going to happen. Specifically, the young people.
Yeah.
Todd says, stop saying the word carbon.
Well, and I wish that was the attitude that these other provinces had, like British Columbia, like Saskatchewan, like the National Conservatives. We all hold the first principles here. We're trying to enact that change. And I mean, a lot of National Conservatives are in denial on how many Conservatives are actually fleeing the country and leaving. I really don't think they have the critical mass of individuals to ever win a national election at this point. And they don't want Alberta to go because then it's going to become very obvious to everybody at that point.
Well, then they fully lose everything. Todd says, carbon money sucking scheme. Can you say wealth transfer? And Todd says, stop saying the word carbon even. Just stop it, please. Never heard the word. Except for in chemistry not too long ago. And some of the comments did get lost during the power shutdown. Todd says, yeah, the battle is happening on many fronts, grassroots to pro and everything in between. Love the Let's Talk Alberta Chris Scott and his crew are doing. Yes, and Chris Scott is great, and we also are very thankful and grateful we got to interview him too. And Todd says, Chris Scott, my favorite burger flip in Roughneck. Had a burger the other day at the Whistle Stop. It was phenomenal. And also the pierogies you keep talking about.
Yeah.
But now, actually, let's go to
Alberta Personalities.
Are we there or politics?
Oh, I thought it was personality.
No, we're on politics.
Okay. I said we probably weren't going to get through all the stories today, but...
Not even half, apparently.
He doesn't discuss federal politics. He only concerns himself with Alberta's independence.
And let's start with, oh, sorry, I didn't even prepare it. Let's start with, from Juno News, says, quote, Poilievre says Carney is pushing Canada toward a surveillance state, citing Bill C-11, C-22, C-9, and C-8. And what does he plan to do? Nothing. Complain about it.
Well, it's nice that he is bringing this up. This brings awareness to National Conservatives. But if he ever gets into power, do you really think he's going to undo these mechanisms or use these mechanisms for his advantage? I wish the answer was he would undo them, but we see the same playbook work itself out in country after country, and the Conservatives come in and they don't take policies like this out. They try to use them for their advantage.
Because once you grant power, they're not going to want to give it back.
What we need to do is take the existing laws and standards that we apply to everyone else and modernize them to apply to tech companies. That does not require a gigantic, new, towering government bureaucracy. My concern is that what Mr. Carney and the Liberals are once again doing is trying to create a censorship and surveillance apparatus. And this is, I'm not the only one who said this, it's already widely viewed. You take the combination of their original C-11, which allows the CRTC to manipulate algorithms online to favor content the government considers to be appropriate. You consider they have a heritage minister that wants to ban Bible verses that he considers to be politically incorrect. And you have parts of C22 that would require large tech companies to ultimately become surveillance arms for the state. I think you put all those things together, you get a troubling view about the government's desire to control, to have more control.
And I know he can't come into power for at least 3 years if he ever manages to come into power. That being said, I would like him not just to have bark here, but to make firm promises. If I ever get into office, I'm going to reverse these bills, unlike other people. At least that would be something. I mean, and then we can try to at least hold him to those promises if he ever gets in office, but keep repeating them and say, I keep repeating myself saying I'm going to reverse it because this is what I plan to do. I don't want a surveillance state. Make that absolutely clear. But what he's doing is complaining, and I feel like if he gets in office, much like other conservatives within the EU got in office, they didn't reverse those policies. They used them for their advantage. We want freedom, and the only real way to guarantee freedom is Alberta independence at this point.
Exactly. But next, Antonio tweeted,
and this was the big crazy story of the day I was kind of talking about.
This how insane is this? Just when thought it couldn't get any more ridiculous. Oh, it can. Hold on, let me make it bigger.
Holy shit. I don't even know how to not swear because this is so insane. Like, so, you know, critics love to say that I'm a rage baiter or conservatives are rage baiter. I hope this makes you freaking rage. Because then maybe if you're as mad as I am or other parents or kids are, you'll actually stand up, say something, and change your vote. Listen to what's going on.
Students at North Barrie Collegiate Institute received condoms and these pamphlets from Canadian Mental Health Association representatives this week.
Already there's so much problems at our school with drug use, and that's not making it any better. That's literally just making it okay for them. People are thinking that's okay, and that's not at all.
The pamphlets, titled Safer Snorting, have a picture of a snort straw and a line of cocaine on the cover, and pages of safety tips for snorting drugs.
It's like kind of promoting addiction to kids.
It said make it your own on the pamphlet and a bunch of colors like, oh yes, bedazzle your little snorting stick.
Well, I almost put this on Rumble, and this is normally the kind of story I would put on Rumble because of the censors. That being said, I felt it was crucially important to actually know what's going on in all of Canada. This isn't just British Columbia anymore.
Especially since they were handing out like the sticks to snort stuff with as well.
We're just like thinking that they're starting to like try and interpret things too like early for kids, like when things shouldn't even be being said.
Parents responded and, as usual, voiced their anger all over social media, accusing the CMHA of taking away rights of parents to talk to their children.
This is very much overstepping parents. The content that was being provided is extremely inappropriate for children.
Brett Bukos has a stepchild, nephew, and multiple nieces at Barrie North. He said he is beyond disgusted and called the pamphlets despicable.
What I've found a lot of feedback is, well, everybody's doing it, so why don't we just teach them to be safe about it? To me, that's a very inappropriate way in how you teach your children.
The CMHA admitting fault in a statement to CTV News saying, in part, CMHA Ontario does not seek to promote or normalize substance use among youth. We regret that unvetted materials were distributed in this context.
Guys, this is so ridiculous. Thank you for CTV for sharing this story.
And you can leave it there. And I will say another thing. This is like one step away from those vending machines actually going in school. And if you don't know what vending machines I'm talking about, literally paraphernalia that is free to access in vending machines outside of a lot of hospitals and other places in Victoria and Vancouver. I wouldn't be surprised if they put these into schools at some point. They're already handing out some of the same things that come out of that vending machine, like the straws, to these kids. And the kids themselves are saying this is ridiculous.
Because I'm telling you, this next generation is coming in based, and they want action and direct action. Let's just put it that way. And I think it is a good way to motivate them to say, you already know you're living with insane people, and the people that are supposed to be teaching you and taking care of you and guiding you are now doing the exact opposite. And it's funny there that what was it called? The Ontario Health Services came out to say, oh, it's not our fault, it's unvetted materials, it wasn't us. But notice how it was all done under the guise of mental health and the mental health society or whatever it was that brought in all these materials to help children and to mitigate whatever they might already be doing. Well, what do you ever think? It could also be incentivizing. And even they were saying, we already have enough issues with this at the school. Why do we need now advice on how to do it and ways to make it our own?
Well, maybe I'll talk to you about this because I went to school for a little while within Canada, high school anyway, and they had a smoke pit which you have to be 18 in order to smoke. It was ridiculous. And I went to school how many years ago now? Over 20 years ago.
Yes.
But even at that time, they were trying to say, oh, it's okay to smoke in school. There should be a zero tolerance policy. You should have to do that off of school grounds if you're going to do it.
Yes. I mean, we would get in trouble 100%.
Oh, so here there was no smoke pits or anything like that on school.
No, that's insane.
Okay.
No.
Well,
I mean,
in Canada, there is.
It's Mexico, so you would get ways to go around it, or you would go like outside of the school to a random corner. But I mean, people got in a lot of trouble because like one time or twice, somebody tried to do something like shenanigans within the school, and they got, I think, suspended for a week.
Well, what about because you worked at a few like international high schools within Canada? Did they have smoke pits there? Or
No,
what was the deal?
everything was what's it called? That rubber foam. Like everything was like padded for the kid. I thought they needed a bit more risk. Like they were too managed at this point. But at the same time, everybody, for some reason, all the teachers, some of them that were trying to or were already teachers and were studying to be teachers or had just finished studying to be teachers would be trying to be the friends of the kids and trying to be like almost making themselves young again and trying to be the cool ones. And I was the only one that was trying to enforce some sort of discipline, because especially these kids that were far away from home, they were receiving no discipline and no guidance. And that is what, in the end, children need. Yes, I was hated at the time, but once I left the job and started working other jobs, a lot of the kids would either try to contact me or I would bump into them on the street, sometimes in downtown Vancouver, and they would say, oh, we miss you, and why miss you, Miss Nat, why aren't you back at school? You should come back, because in the end, kids do end up needing that discipline, and they end up respecting you for that, because it shows you care about them. If you just want to be their friend, if you just want to be cool and hand out the paraphernalia, and that's essentially the whole education system within, I wouldn't just say Vancouver, but all of Canada is all the teachers, especially the millennial ones, are trying to be all nice and woke and friendly with them because they want to be young again and they want to be different to what the kinds of teachers they got, but they're not earning any respect and they're not doing any actual impact that they think they're doing. If you want to make an impact, you want to actually give them guidance and discipipline.
Okay, let's go into that's okay.
And then this was high schools.
Let's go into the last story, and then I want to address something before we go into comments there.
Mocha, I really like Mocha. Mocha says, quote, Judge grants Singh charged with break and enter and disgusting assault of his passengers, $0 bail.
Yeah, and if you're not subscribed to Mocha, especially on X, I think that's his big account. He's doing fantastic journalism out of Alberta.
Says, I just obtained the bail conditions of Tejinder Singh, the 30-year-old Medicine Hat rideshare driver charged after police say he followed his female passenger into her home in the middle of the night and did disgusting things. That's how I have to say it for YouTube.
I just obtained the bail conditions of Tejinder Singh, a rideshare driver who allegedly followed his female passenger into her home in the middle of the night right here in Medicine Hat, Alberta, and sexually assaulted her. Singh is charged with breaking and entering and sexual assault. According to Medicine Hat Police's preliminary investigation, 30-year-old Tejinder Singh, a vehicle-for-hire driver, followed his adult female passenger into her home in the early morning.
And nobody's going to be convicted here, but this is the kind of case we want to keep an eye on and see what happens. So I'm glad he's kind of brought it up.
Of Saturday, where he sexually assaulted her. Everyone is innocent until proven guilty, of course. But what was a vehicle-for-hire driver doing in a woman's house at 2:40 a.m.? Well, I really want to put that question to Tejinder Singh, and that's why I traveled from Calgary this morning, to attend his plea election and to keep track of his trial dates to ensure Justice Minister Mikey Amory's Crown prosecutors don't pull a quick one. Tejinder Singh did not appear in court today. Instead, he appointed a lawyer to represent him.
Okay, and we can leave it there. I highly recommend going to watch Mocha's full report on that, though.
Yes, Mocha Bezergan at BEZ. It's a hard one. It's at BEZIRGANMOCHA.
Yeah, and now I forgot. I was going to say something else there, but it kind of slipped my mind a little bit. I was going to say Canada is turning more and more to the EU every single day and going lax on a lot of these punishments. I think we need to start keeping an eye and having independent media track a lot of these cases. So good on Mocha for actually doing that.
Yes, thank you so much. And now we'll go to comments.
Why don't we read this freaking email? This guy keeps emailing us, and I'm not trying to kill the independence movement, as he keeps putting it. But did you see it come in there?
I saw it come in. I can't bring it up because I don't want to.
No, don't bring it up. You can just read it, but leave his name out of it because we've been respectful enough not to put people's names out there. This is the same individual that we went over his emails the other day. Yes. He was making threats that he would cancel the channel, this and that. So,
so the first one and then the second one?
Oh, there's two.
I think it was two, yeah. So it says, please.
Just the most recent one, yeah.
The one that says, please, please?
Yeah. There's two.
I'm pleading with you. Please don't undermine this October. Without this October, we are dead in the water. That's all I'm asking. You're scaring off the 30% that we need by saying that we should have a backup plan with unilateral declaration of independence, that we need that plan. That's what we continue to say that this individual doesn't like. And also says, has it entered your mind that I bring our disagreements to email out of respect for you rather than online? But again, if you want to have the discussion, we do have to have it. And I'm sure maybe if you're thinking that, other people are thinking it as well. And again, we won't say the name and we won't say where they come from. But the initial threats that we wanted to bring up and that we brought up in the first emails that we got, well, I mean, those were...
Look, I discussed a lot of ideas on the show. They need to be had because if we start playing checkers here and we just look at October 19th, and then once October 19th is here, now we can look at the next move. We're playing checkers and the federal government is playing chess. That's why they're trying to lengthen out the binding referendum to 2 to 3 years now. This is absolutely ridiculous. The mechanism of control to make sure the federal government actually gives us a binding referendum in quick succession is to buy UCP memberships and have a leadership review on Danielle Smith after the binding referendum on October 19th. We need to get somebody in there that is going to guarantee us a binding referendum within 6 to 12 months. We need to think about that now. Otherwise, Danielle Smith is going to consolidate power within the UCP and push independent supporters out. This is one of the reasons we need to continue to buy memberships. And I'm not going to back down from this issue because we need that mechanism, not just to make sure we get a quick binding referendum, but for a lot of other strategies. We need to basically own the UCP through memberships, and we need to be able to own a leadership review if it comes down to it.
Because we need to have a secondary and tertiary and quaternary plan. We can't just say we're going to wait for the non-binding referendum, and then, as it has happened over and over again over the past 100 years, because again, Alberta has been trying to be...
We just can't wait because they've already told us it's 2.5 to 3 years. Well, I'm not accepting that timeline, period. That means we have to win a U.S. presidential election. Otherwise, we're not going to have a country to recognize us.
And make sure that nobody goes to the U.S. because they just get sick and tired of having to wait around. And then you lose that momentum of people and that mass of people that you need to actually vote if they ever do give you a binding referendum.
You're losing the more that we agree to Danielle Smith's rules and to Mark Carney's rules and all these other things. Yes, we want to do it legally, but we want to make sure we own the mechanisms of control within these legal pathways. And we have to talk about them now, because if we just talk about the next strategy, once we do the first strategy, literally we're playing checkers and we're going to be destroyed because our opponent's playing chess.
And again, I would not, especially with the young people, I wouldn't blame them for saying, well, this is never going to go anywhere. And it's the same thing that we've been told over and over again. So why would I believe it this time? If we can say we have a plan afterwards and we know where we're going afterwards and not just hoping that we get our way this time, well, then less people, I think more people, and especially the young ones, would be like, okay, then I'll support it.
Okay, I just wanted to address that really quick, actually.
But now we'll go to the rest of your comments.
Yeah, because I know I'm not backing down on that issue, period. I think Danielle Smith does not, is going to do everything to put roadblocks in her path, and she needs a leadership review after October 19th. Best way to do that is through memberships in the UCP.
For some reason, some of the comments I can't read.
And I mean, that's my opinion. It's free speech. Free speech is a principle, so I understand everybody's not going to agree with me, and I'm fine with that.
Okay, now let's go to, and it's also because it's not the first emails we received from that individual. That's why we also wanted to.
No, we've had a slew of emails come in with a lot of threats that he's going to cancel the channel. And it's just like, we have a difference of opinion. That's all. We both support Alberta independence. You think my strategy is going to hurt us. I think it's going to help us. Maybe I think your strategy in some circumstances isn't the best strategy. But
and again, we're putting ideas out there. We're not saying, oh, this is what we're going to do and we're going to go, this is the only way we should do it. We're just planting and putting out ideas. And if someone wants to take them or thinks it's a good idea, then good, and if not, we'll have the debate.
Okay, let's continue to go.
Joe Rush says, that's hilarious, but true comparison, family court versus criminal court, what a funny reality. And Viola Hiller, thank you so much for being here, says, watching from Alberta. And Silverfeet says, football, as it should be called and as it is called. Joe Rush says, yes, let we the people decide what to do with our money.
Yeah, absolutely. But this is the thing. After this non-binding referendum on October 19th, we need to make sure we have a leader that's going to be pushing sovereign policies outside of Alberta independence, meaning stop sending natural resource money, $700 million a week to Ottawa. That literally takes one phone call. You don't even need a bill for that. We can stop remittance payments by simply passing a bill in Alberta and stop giving the payments. If we start doing these things, this is a real-time education for the general public that the federal government is not going to allow us to have any kind of sovereignty, and that Alberta independence is the only way forward.
Yes, and the truth says Alberta independence, we gone, and so that's Alberta here.
Fantastic.
And hold on, because again, a bunch of comments did not come up. Now I'm trying to think them with where we were. Where were we? God. Chris Scott. Okay, there we go.
What the heck? Now he's giving us another email. Yeah, and this is just a straight up lie. So why don't you read this one now?
Hold on.
We're dealing with a troll in real time on the air
but
here,
on our email for some
on our
reason.
email. Again, we're not going to give his name because we're just respectful. And he did used to watch the show and things like that. But
Yes.
and I've offered him to come on the show. He can do it remotely, and we can have a debate of what the best strategies are. I understand why you don't think my strategies is good. I can explain why I think it is the best strategy, and we can hash it out in real time if you want.
And again, and I will also say before I read it, this individual had also sent us emails about other content creators and trying to get us to take the bait to also try to go against those content creators that we like and that we were not going to do. So if you're trying to do the same with us and other content creators, just know that we also received emails from this same person telling us to go against
You're going long-winded here now.
Well, I had to. It says, for some reason, John Bolton, it says, I've never heard you insult John with a snide at 2 a.m. remark, don't be childish. When do we say at 2 a.m.?
First of all, I go to bed. I literally go to bed at 9:30 every night.
I stay up till like 4 editing usually.
Maybe you're doing
So
something I don't know about. I've never made it.
Did we say something about at 2 a.m. or was I reading someone else's comment?
I've only said good things about John Bolton. I like John Bolton. He's one of my favorite people within Alberta independence.
Yes, and we continue to have constant communication with him. So.
Absolutely ridiculous.
Very interesting and very weird. Not Argentina. Spain just scored against Uruguay.
We're not watching soccer
No, but hold
here.
on. But when did we say 2 a.m.?
We've never. That's the thing. He's making things up now.
Why? Hold on. Where were we with the comments? Oh, God. Justin GP says, and his limo was an Albertosaurus. Lol, sorry, Steve. And where are we? Todd says, we have hockey leagues here for you, Troglodyte. We'll let you play here too, because Troglodyte, I believe, is still in BC. And I hope he can get out as soon as he can, as fast as possible to go to Alberta. And Justin GP says, Steve and Troglodyte are so old that when they go to... I can't say that one, Jazz. I really like that joke, but I can't say it here on YouTube. Todd says, like the quote-unquote defend trans rights signs in the windows of two homes when I drive down the street in Stelter, of all places. And yeah, you never know where and what kind of supporters are also out there.
Well, and this is the thing. That culture is just going to fester within Calgary and Alberta, and this is why we need to break free now. I mean, we can end mass media propaganda in certain degrees, and Canada is leaning harder into it with all these censorship bills.
And Todd says, when is enough going to be enough for people? And I continue to wonder that myself. I continue to see people putting up with more and more stuff that I'm like, are you just comfortable enough and being kept comfortable enough by the government that you're willing to put up with that?
Well, it was enough for me a long time ago. Yeah. They crossed over every red line. I had a hard talk with myself. It was not easy to leave Canada. It took a number of years and me working 24-hour shifts every Friday, 12-hour shifts, 7 days a week. Outside of that, I was exhausted. There was no way I was gonna stay. I seen the direction they were going. They had already stepped over every red line during the jibby jab era. So I had already pulled the parachute. I didn't think there was a critical mass of individuals within Canada that would come to the same conclusion. But once I seen Alberta, it really gave me a lot of hope. And I'm thinking maybe we can save as many people as we can save by not letting them push you out of your own country.
Exactly. Todd says, no, we're definitely keeping the UDI and we will use it. Troglodyte says, PSYOP BS. Todd says, here, hold our whistle, stop burgers, UDI. Justin GP says, must be in the chat then. No, it was through emails and we continue to get emails from this individual. But says, must be in the chat then. Paragraph 155 of the 1998 Supreme Court decision indicates a unilateral declaration of independence is a legit way. Are you emailing Keith Wilson too? Because he states this also.
Yeah, and Jeff Raff states this and multiple other lawyers state this. And what he's stating is it's illegal. Yeah, it might be, there's a legal path on an international level, and then there's a legal path inside of Canada. But when the federal government is trying to make new rules and new legislation, which they can absolutely do, and they can draw this thing out, and then they can eventually just say, even if we have a binding referendum, there's a new mechanism within the UCP that they can say, no, we're not going to take the path of independence at that point. That's why we're going to need a leader inside of the UCP that has a backbone and is in support of independence. I mean, at a certain point, we may have to take the international legal path rather than the Canadian legal path, but it's not there yet, and we're headed towards a binding referendum or non-binding referendum. We just want to make sure that we're going to get that binding referendum in a quick order.
And Todd says, why are they using a UDI? LOL, but this will make sense in a second. Todd says, go Tommy Robinson, go is all I know about the UK. And Troglodyte says, I used the UDI, I still had a kid. That would be an IUD, an intrauterine device. We're talking about a unilateral declaration of independence, but they're more sinister also than women think they are.
Oh yeah, we used to talk about that quite a lot actually. Why don't we go into Alberta personalities? That may be the last section for today though.
A few more comments. Todd says, meaning Danny will be replaced by someone like Grant Abraham guy.
Yeah, and we were a little bit overworked, so we were transitioning to the new set and other things, but we're going to start interviewing people again soon. He's one of the first people we're going to kind of reach out to.
Yes, and Justin GP says, Troglodyte, I think the IUD, not UDI, should have been in the woman. Pretty sure you did it wrong. Troglodyte says, you might have a point, Jess. That sounds painful and gross, and if you know how IUD works, then you don't want to think about it going into a man. But now let's go to, what was it? Alberta Personalities.
But they need to understand that Albertans are done, we're leaving, and there's no more conversation to be had. I know that's upsetting to people.
Let's start, hold on. Where are we?
Alberta Personalities.
Yeah, I know, but I couldn't find my bearings. Rebel News says, quote, Conservative MP Jamil Giovanni launches task force targeting federal DEI policies.
And again, I love what a lot of the Conservatives propose and pitch, but they have no way to implement it. Even if he gets a task force, how's that task force going to implement any policies? It's just not going to happen under a Liberal majority government. We're in a worst case scenario here. This is worse than Trudeau because now he's got a majority government and we're in for 3 years. He's just building the mechanisms. Once he starts to implement it, I think people are really going to start waking up, or I hope so at that point. But it's just a damn shame because there are good people in Canada. They just have no way to affect change. Alberta independence is that way.
Canadians are being increasingly told that their ethnicity matters more than their competency, and one Conservative MP has had enough. Gun Reid for Rebel News. I'm here in Ottawa, Ontario, the nation's capital. I flew here from my home in Alberta. Now, I am here today to meet with Conservative MP Jamil Giovanni. He has recently announced a task force to end Liberal racism. That's how he describes federal government hiring policies that focus on DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, over meritocracy. It's an ideology he describes as nefarious and paternalistic. Now, that's not the only thing that we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about the jobs crisis in Canadian youth, how that is affected by the Liberals' out-of-control immigration policies, including the use of the Temporary Foreign Workers Program.
And you can leave it there. That being said, again, great policies, but how are we going to affect this with a Liberal majority government? They're the ones that are going to install more and more of these policies. And he's trying to address it just within government because I guess that's where he feels he can affect change. But this is going going on throughout the nation in non-governmental roles and non-governmental companies. We used to work for the Teamsters Union in Vancouver for film, and man, it is riddled with those policies. As a matter of fact, it's in the contracts. If they don't hit certain quotas for race diversity, gender diversity, and things like that, contracts will be canceled.
I was going to say something. Okay, next. John Alberta Patriot says, I spoke with a man in Sundre while the Alberta parade rolled by, and we talked about something important. It actually takes courage now to hang an Alberta flag. It does not take courage to hang a Canadian flag. Nobody will attack you for that. And again, that mechanism that the Liberals used by, let's remember, during the Freedom Convoy, that they did take a lot of courage to try to hang the Canadian flag, but then elbows up, and Mark Carney took the Canadian flag and used it for their own purposes and devices and essentially turned it into a National Socialism symbol of Canada. So now it doesn't have to take courage, but the Alberta flag essentially it now represents very similar things to what it did at the Freedom Convoy. It says it does not, hold on, where are we? But an Alberta flag that tells other Albertans that they are not alone. That is why lawn signs, flags, stickers, and public support matter. Every visible symbol gives courage. Okay. Okay, let's just play it as the guy says.
Sorry, we're running out of time because the Unacceptable Fringe is going to come on. I don't like to overlap the shows whenever possible.
Okay, sorry.
Do you like what we're doing here?
Yes.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. Do you think there's a lot of support for independence in Sundre?
Oh, yeah.
Seems like it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The odd Canadian flags running around, but yeah.
Yeah, the odd Canadian. You know, the thing is, it doesn't take any courage to hang the Canadian flag right now. It takes a lot of courage to hang the Alberta flag because it's now they're turning it into like, you know, a symbol of, well, they hate us now for it.
Yeah.
You know, they genuinely hate us. And
it's just like when the trucker convoy was on, they all hated the Canadian flag.
They hated it. Oh, it's brutal.
And then now it's
switched. I know. It's exactly switched. It's like, when did you find your love for the Canadian flag? Because we were actually carrying it first.
Yeah, yeah.
Like we wanted in, you know, for so long. And like I was a proud Canadian. I never thought that I would ever be supporting this.
Yeah.
But like here we are now.
Yeah.
So
it's gonna be a good turnout.
Yeah. Well, they're turning around. I see some Alberta flags already coming around now. So I'm gonna continue.
And common sense, common people, Alberta independence. I mean, that's the pitch. Every time I watch John talking to Albertans, that's kind of what I think.
Yeah. True.
And we got another email from that individual.
That's what I was going to ask.
And we've read all of his original emails now without giving his name a couple of shows ago.
The recent emails he sent us addressing us.
All 4 emails we got today, we've now read. We're going to read the final one here. He's saying we're not reading emails.
That's why I read the rest of the emails, cowards. And I know which emails he refers to. He's referring to the ones where he's insulting another creator. And I'm not going to read those because I respect that other creator. And if you want to insult that creator, do it to that creator's face. So,
yeah.
We don't want to get involved in any of that because, again, we really respect everybody who you've vented to us about. So we're not going to do that.
Well, and I understand there's a lot of different voices in Alberta independence. It's a grassroots movement, and we're coming from all angles. This is what's really off balancing the federal government right now.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
Do you want to go to the last story? Or
yeah, the last story is actually the best story in Alberta Personalities. Absolutely love this clip. He's been having a lot of great clips lately, I will say.
Caleb?
Yeah.
Alberta 51 Project says, yes, the Canadian government did create a housing problem. How did they attempt to solve it? Pay for entire hotels to be demolished by uncivilized immigrants.
Canada can't figure out how to get like a house under $1 million. I don't give a fuck what Canada says. They don't know what they're doing.
I don't know. They're doing better than us in the economics department right now.
Legitimately not true. They haven't had a growth in productivity in 4 years. That is unheard of in Western civilization. That is beyond factually incorrect. Their housing prices are 4 times what ours are. They have a population of, 40 million? But they had, wasn't it like immigration of 400,000 or something? An absolutely crazy percentage, and they can't house those people, and it pushes everyone's cost of living substantially higher, even though economically...
If they have an immigration of 400,000, then they've got to have spaces for them to go.
Oh, guys, so that's how that works.
And I watched that clip a few times. I really want to watch that full episode now. Oh, if they have 400,000 immigrants, they need to have, and it's 1 million immigrants most years, they need to have housing for them? No, that's not how the Canadian government's working right now, and that's a problem.
And also that's the problem. The bigger problem is
it's mass immigration itself.
No, yes. But the bigger problem is also, I mean, he's an American because Caleb is in the US, and he does talk to a lot of people that end up saying, we're going to go live in Canada. Everything's going to be better in Canada because they're hyper progressive liberals, blue hair, nose ring, etc. And he tries to tell them, no, Canada is not what you think it is. And it's doing way worse than even we are. And you're complaining being here in America, imagine being over in Canada. But I think because of a lot of the propaganda that comes out of Canada continues to come out, and this World Cup luckily has kind of helped people that go to Canada see the differences between
Slow down.
Well, because you're tapping the table for me to shut up. Between the
just slow
US and
down.
Canada. Okay. Between the US and Canada, then I think it's good, and it would be good for more and more people, especially maybe even within Alberta independence, to keep doing the opposite, like counter propaganda to what a lot of people think Canada is. And there is more and more people from Canada moving to the US, and I continue to see these accounts, and I'd love to highlight them too at some point, of people moving to Florida and saying, well, this is why I'm moving. I had to leave Canada, but within Alberta, we have this opportunity to actually, all of us just have the better circumstance and not even have to be in the US.
Yeah, and we're gonna. The show went a little bit long today. We're gonna miss out on a lot of stories. I think I'm gonna bring them over to tomorrow's show. Tomorrow's show is gonna be at noon because we have to do something at night.
Yes. Troglodyte says, hold on. Another yellow census note crumpled and thrown in driveway. Keep calm and carry on.
That's what I feel like this guy emailing us is doing.
Basically.
Is sends a bunch of census notes I don't want to hear from.
But no, the census is the...
Yeah, I know what the census is.
You can make like some kind of sculpture with them and then send them a picture of it. Todd says, charge him for harassment. Yeah, basically. Troglodyte says, my great-grandfather didn't... pass away in World War I, and grandfather didn't go fight in World War II. So I could be a wuss. There we go. Sorry. Todd says, absolutely loves me some John talking to Albertans, and same here.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm going to say a lot of people didn't fight in these wars, so we can go along with all of Canada turning communist.
Yeah, that's what they're fighting against.
Absolutely ridiculous. And the way that, like, they have the system set up, like communism seems to be the inevitable conclusion to this, other than Alberta independence. It's time to get out while we can.
Mm-hmm. And Todd says, such a shame, Trog. Sorry. Sean says, I'm back. Todd says, I wouldn't waste it, Todd. Their legacy is my drive and good as well. Sean says, government paying for condos. Now they are, exactly, because they don't know what... They're bailing out the developers by putting by saying that is the housing that they promised they were going to build.
But nobody likes bailing out the developers, and the left is furious over this, and Mark Carney is hearing it, and like bailing out developers, it couldn't be a worse policy if you had one. Maybe he's trying to cash out everything he can before things really turn against him.
Troglodyte says, back in the USSR, you don't know how lucky you are, boys. That's a quote. Justin GP says, welcome back, neighbor Sean. We were bugging you about your Z, as we will continue to do, and the football. Sean says,
Soccer.
I had someone on another stream whine about losing a grandparent to a Salmon program in the 20s, and it's like, so what? I lost family too, but it doesn't make me a better person or something.
Yeah.
And Todd says, true, the Beatles warned us. Sean says, that isn't really, it's the freedom speak. And hold on, over on RUMBLE, I did lose a bunch of the comments on RUMBLE when I had to refresh, but no, it says it still doesn't work. Astro Sweat says, using ScrewTube audio and Mumble chat. Thank you so much. And it says that it only works on YouTube, but thank you for staying on RUMBLE, and it does help. Hold on.
Thank you for everybody tuning in today. If you're not subscribed, please do so. We've been losing a little bit of subscribers here or there. That being said, also hit the like button. It really does help us out the next day if we can hit 100 likes.
And Todd says the USSR is here unless we get Alberta independence. True. And Stephen Jensen says, time to get the Fringe out. See y'all there. And yes, good luck heading over to the Fringe. We will too. We will go watch Derek as well. Todd says, Fringe, Fringe, Fringe. Justin JP says, also neighbors. Yes. Rage Against Machine says, great show. Thank you so much. And Sean says, neighbors know you. Stop it with what's it called? Spelling fighting. But yes, we'll see you tomorrow at noon. Remember, please don't forget to subscribe before you head over. Have a great rest of your night.